And now we're going to take a look at cladograms of phylogenetic trees. We've looked at them before, but we're going to go back and review. This is a cladogram showing how different animals branched, different categories of animals branched from the same point here. Amniotic egg, all of these organisms on this cladogram have an amniotic egg. And we know that turtles, lizards, snakes, crocodiles, birds, they lay eggs. And then their babies hatch from those eggs. Mammals also have eggs. Remember, egg and sperm. When the egg is fertilized, it develops an amniotic sac. So they also have an amniotic egg. It's a little different. And they actually develop inside the body. And mammals give birth to live babies. And mammals are also endothermic, which means warm-blooded. So all of these characteristics are characteristics of animals. The amniotic egg, mammals have hair, mammals have mammary glands, and endothermic, which means that they're warm-blooded. And over here, we branch off in a different direction. All these are going to have keratin in their skin. Okay. So this would go with everybody on those branches. Parental care starts right here. Turtles, snakes, and lizards do not, generally there's some who do, but most do not care for their young. And crocodiles do, and I guess we're assuming dinosaurs do, birds do, care for the young for a while. Okay, and then these are all cold-blooded, but then at this point they develop what's called avian endothermy, which means birds are endothermic or warm-blooded as well. So let's see what our questions look like. Number 1 says name 5 characteristics possessed by birds. So anything that came before the bird would be a characteristic of bird. At this point, you could list avian endothermy, asymmetrical feathers, bipedalism, which means 2 feet. Stand up and walk on 2 feet. Parental care. And you can even go on down here. These are also characteristics of bird. The keratinized skin and the amniotic egg. So anything that came before the bird would be a characteristic of those birds. Okay. These would not go with the bird because the bird branched off before we got to these traits. And I'm not going to list those off, but you can see what they are there. Number 2, name 2 characters possessed by reptiles and birds. The group comprised of turtles, lizards, snakes, crocodiles, dinosaurs, and birds, including their common ancestors. So 2 characteristics possessed by all of those, including the lizards and snakes. So the only 2, see, these all go off in this branch, but the turtles, lizards, and snakes do not have those. Okay, turtles, lizards, snakes would have the keratinized skin and the amniotic egg. So those would be the only 2 that all of these have in common. The amniotic egg and the branches off keratinized skin, which would go on to that one, but these would not have that. These would not have these over here. Okay. But everybody's going to have that keratinized skin and that amniotic egg. Name 4 characters possessed by mammals. We just talked about that a little bit. Endothermy, mammary glands, hair, and amniotic egg. They all came before mammals, so mammals had all those. Number 4, true or false. On their own, crocodiles, dinosaurs, and birds form a clade. Crocodiles, dinosaurs, and birds. Crocodiles, yes, they are clade. A clade is just a place that has branched off, a group that's together. So this would be a clade right here. If we had something else branching off over here, then that would be a clade as well. Cladogram number 2. We have hagfish perched on those. And it starts with jaws, lungs, claws, nails, furs, and mammary glands. And then up that branch we have feathers that just go with the birds. And notice there is no primitive trait on this one. Jaws is the first trait that's listed. And the hagfish does not have jaws. Primitive trait would have to be back here, so all of the organisms have it. These would all be derived traits that came along later. So what animal does not have jaws? Jaws came in right here. The hagfish came in before those jaws developed. So hagfish would be the one that does not have jaws. That would be the hagfish. Next one says which animals have lungs. So where do the lungs come in? Jaws came in there. The perch had jaws, but the perch does not have lungs because lungs come after its development. So lungs, anybody after lungs would have that characteristic. So salamanders, lizards, pigeons, mouse, and chimp all have lungs. Number 3 says, based on this cladogram, what is the only organism with feathers? So according to this cladogram, feathers is right here, so it just goes with the one that's on that branch. So pigeon would be the only one on this cladogram with feathers. And cladogram number 3 says, list the organisms that show multicellularity. So where did being multicellular come in? And it says there was a single-cell organism, and then multicellularity developed here, and then all the animals, sponges, it's the first one listed. It comes past that multicellular node there. Those little things for the traits on those little dots are called nodes. So this would be a node here for multicellularity. Everything past that would be multicellular. So the organisms that are multicellular, that's going to be the sponges, the cnidarian, the flatworm, roundworm, mollusk, annelids, arthropods, echinoderms, and chordatas. They are all multicellular. Number 2 says, list any organisms that lacks tissues. Lacks tissues, or tissues developed right here. Tissue is when you have different types of cells, groups of cells working together for a common function would be a tissue. Well, of course, if you're single-celled, you can't have a tissue. Multicellular came along right here, but tissues have not developed yet, so apparently sponges do not have tissues. Then tissues developed, and everybody past this node, this is tissues, everybody past that would have tissues. Okay, so sponges would be the one that lacks tissue. Lack means does not have, so lacks tissues would be sponges. Number 3, list organisms with radial symmetry. So radial symmetry. This one's a little tricky because we come along. It's not listed on our main line here. Right here we get a branch off to the cnidarians, and the radial symmetry is a node on their little branch there. So the cnidarians would have radial symmetry, but we also see it again right up here at the echinoderms, and this is starfish here, also has radial symmetry. But it's just on that branch again, so that would be the only one that would go with, and that would be the only one that one would go with. Number 4 says, what organisms have deuterostomic development? Deuterostomic development, that has to do with the digestive tract there. And deuterostomic development is right here. Okay. These had a C come back here. That's a different. And periosteum development is back here. Deuterostome development, that means duo, means it has an opening for a mouth and an opening for an anus, both. So it starts right here and goes in this direction. So the echinoderms and the chordatas would both have that deuterostome development. Number 5 says list protostome organisms that have a coelom. So deuterostome development replaces the protostome development. So we have protostomes from the point that trait comes in up until the point where we get the deuterostomes, because deuterostomes will take the place of the protostomes at that point. So protostome came in right here. So that would apply to the flatworm, to the roundworm. Did it say with the coelom? It might have said with the coelom, did it? Protostome organisms that have a coelom. So actually it wouldn't. Those would be protozoans, but the coelom comes in right here. So the only ones that would have a coelom would be the ones off of this branch, because at this point the deuterostome is going to replace the protostome. So these are all protostomes up until this point. The ones that have a coelom, that's just going to be this little branch right here, this clad. The mollusk, annelids, and arthropods, that clad right there, would be protozoans with a coelom. And after that, Dearest Son would take over. And that's that.